Right. Good evening. Hello. How are you? Can you hear me properly, people? Am I audible? Hello? Yes, me mouse it. Yeah, oh, I don't know. Right. Okay. Good evening, students. We we had to discuss three sections today. Um, right. Send your messages to the main chat. Is it raining now? Is it raining? It's heavy rain here. Yep. Yeah. Maybe you can hear from the background the raining sound, right? Just me right, people, we have to start discussing. Shall we start from evolution part? Ne? Evolution part better, ne? Evolution part better. So we'll start from here, right? Evolution. You learn this. Okay. Right, people will discuss this evolution process. Right, let's discuss this evolution process. So what is this polysaccharide? Ne? Right, evolution process, unit 3, the beginning part. Evolution, we'll discuss evolution first, and then we'll talk about plant life cycles. Ne? Plant life cycles after that. Okay. The theories of origin of life and natural selection to analyze the evolution, to analyze the process of evolution of life. Right. So here we learn that Earth and the other planets, solar system were formed about 4.6 billion years ago. 4.6 billion years ago. Right? Oh. What's that? Something wrong. Right. All right. Right. So we learn about this process, evolution, solar energy, UV radiation, in the early atmosphere was full of these gases. What do you say? Well, little oxygen, nitrogen, oxides of nitrogen, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, water. They were in the early atmosphere. And then with UV radiation and then with lightning energy came from that. In the atmosphere, these simple inorganic compounds, they reacted and then formed simple organic compounds such as amino acids, and then nitrogenous bases, urea, like simple materials were formed in the early atmosphere. And then what we said, people? with the rain, they dissolve in seawater. And then what had happened? They transform into simple organic compounds. These simple organic compounds further polymerized and then transform into the complex organic compounds, right? So this is the inorganic compounds from simple organic compounds in the atmosphere, and then they polymerize further and then transform into complex organic compounds such as what? RNA, protein, lipids like materials. And then we can see that people, they reorganize to form the protocells, and then protocells, they obtain the ability of division, right? They started dividing and then forming what you call self-replicable units. Right? This is the story of the formation of life. The formation of life. Right. So this is what we learned. So quickly check that part. First atmosphere was probably thick with water vapor along with various compounds released by volcanic eruptions, including nitrogen, its oxide, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and little oxygen. The atmosphere then turned to be a reducing one. So at the beginning, the atmosphere was a reducing atmosphere, right? That means less oxygen, more hydrogen. So you can take it as a reducing atmosphere. And then later, Earth was cooled down and the water vapor condensed into ocean. Much of the hydrogen escaped into the space. So hydrogen now lost into space, right? But still, there was little oxygen, so it was not an oxidizing atmosphere. Maybe it was a reducing stage. Much of the hydrogen escaped, and then volcanic eruptions, lightning, extreme UV radiation, hydrothermal vents. We learned that the hydrothermal vents are the beneath, under the sea, there were cracks, and then the seawater seepage through these cracks deeper and then heated up by the earth activity, and then gushed out through tiny chimneys. So you call those chimneys as the hydrothermal vents. There was another thing, what's that? Alkaline vents. So we said that hydrothermal vents, they had quite high temperature, and then alkaline vents, relatively low temperature anyway, right? They can be the early sites of formation of some of the simple organic compounds, right? So you can see that they had formed in the early atmosphere, or maybe by the volcanic atmosphere, or maybe they were brought by the meteors. We are not sure about the site of formation of first organic compounds, but right, the resource says, right, and these were formed. Much of the volcanic eruptions, lightning, extreme UV radiation, hydrothermal vents, and alkaline vents, along with the Earth reducing atmosphere, favored the synthesis of organic molecules essential for the origin of life. These simple organic molecules then polymerize to form macromolecules such as proteins and nucleic acids, further formation of self-replicating units. So we talk about people, this evolution of biological diversity. We talk about the formation of these initial first organic compounds we describe based on biochemical evolution, right? Direct evidence for the life on early Earth come from fossils of microorganisms 3.5 billion years ago. So we believe that the first life had formed about 3.5 billion years ago. Fossil evidence present to this time period, fossils present, right? Fossil evidence available, right? They are not the remnants of the cells, but some marks on the rocks and all due to these early metabolic activities of these organisms have left some scars, and those scars we can identify as fossils of these early organisms, right? The theory of biochemical evolution arose from the hypothesis based on chemical and physical process of early Earth. the emerging force of natural selection could have produced the first cell through a sequence of 4 main stages, right? So natural selection, that is what we believe, right? We believe the Darwin's theory of evolution and the natural selection. So if you apply it here, right, even from the formation of the first cell, from that point, we can talk about natural selection, right? There were various compounds formed, right? And then more stable, more suitable molecules, they remained, and then they had led to formation of the first cell, right? So we can, yeah, right? So we learned that these early molecules, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and even nucleic acids. You learn, people, the first type of nucleic acids were RNA molecules, not DNA, right? RNA, they were the first, nucleic acids, all right? So now we discuss, people, the formation of life, early life, under 4 main headings. What are those 4 main headings? Atmospheric condition of early Earth facilitate abiotic synthesis of small organic molecules, so that the simple inorganic molecules have first transformed into simple organic compounds. Number 2, polymerization of the simple organic molecules lead to formation of organic macromolecules. So amino acids polymerize and then form proteins. Nitrogen base, sugar, phosphate form nucleic acid, right? So this is formation of the complex macromolecules, right? So second step, formation of macromolecules. Third one, people, organic macromolecules were packed into membrane to produce protocells. Protocells, the primitive cells. Primitive cells, you can call them as protocells, right? Primitive cells. And then the nucleic acid gained the self-replicating ability and then transformed into the first living forms, right? First living forms had formed with that. So look at this, right? This shows you the early process of formation of the complex life, right? The evolution process. As you know, 4.6 billion years ago, Earth formed. Then after 1.1 billion years later, 1.1 billion years later, we can see that the origin of life, the first prokaryotic life, began about 3.5 billion years ago. And then, people, we talk about formation of photosynthetic organisms. 2.7 billion years ago, photosynthetic organisms were formed. You learn, people, some of the early anaerobic heterotrophic prokaryotic organisms. How do you describe these early life forms, people? Anaerobic heterotrophic prokaryotes, right? Anaerobic heterotrophic prokaryotes, right? They had evolved into, anaerobic heterotrophic prokaryotes had evolved into the photosynthetic, neither. So this was anaerobic prokaryotic heterotrophic ones here. Anaerobic prokaryotic heterotrophs had evolved into anaerobic prokaryotic autotroph. They picked some of the pigments present in the early oceans, and they started a new form of nutrition to take light and to make food by their own, taking ingredients from seawater. Because people, 3.5 billion years ago, there were so many heterotrophic organisms in early oceans. So there was more competition to take these the simple nutrients in the seawater. So at one point, the ocean's nutrition level decreased, and there were no much nutrients left. So that these new type of nutrition that they discovered had a benefit in survival. So natural selection, once again, natural selection, Natural selection. So the natural selection had led to formation of the first cell. The same natural selection had led to formation of the autotrophic prokaryotes at one point of evolution. 2.7 billion years, my dear, right? These organisms formed. And then 1.8 billion years ago, endosymbiosis of the aerobic bacteria with eukaryotic cell and symbiosis of photosynthetic bacteria with a primitive eukaryotic cell had led to form the present day complex eukaryotic cells, right? So the eukaryotes had evolved from prokaryotes. You learn that story 1.8 billion years ago. Dear students, 1.8 billion years ago. Now you remember these time periods, ne? That's your challenge, right? I know that you have studied these things, but let's go through them, neither. Revise it multiple times until these information registers in your brain, right? So 1.2 billion years ago, what had happened, people? The early formed eukaryotes, they had transformed into multicellularity, so that something similar to modern red algae had evolved about 1.2 billion years ago, along with the other protists, right? Red algae had evolved. So we consider that as the beginning of the multicellular life. So that the eukaryotes, they had the power to transform into multicellularity. So they didn't stop from there either. Then you can see that the other complex lives, spongy, they had evolved, right? And then from them, more complex arthropods, chordates had evolved. 700 million years ago, the spongy had evolved. And then people, what is the time period we said here? 670 million years ago, what happened? Arthropods and chordates had evolved. And then after 500 million years later, the land became gradually colonized by organisms. The continuous release of oxygen by photosynthetic prokaryotes and those eukaryotic organisms had made the ozone layer and reduced the UV radiation at the land. So that had made land more suitable for the life. So what you see, right? The land life had begun. And then these early life forms, they were the plants, fungi, and some of the arthropods like scorpions and all. They were the early land forms. We can say roughly, people, after 500 million years ago, right? You can take 470 million years, right? And then from them later, 365 million years ago, tetrapods had evolved. You know, tetrapoda, four-limbed bearing organisms. And then we also discussed people 40 million years ago, angiosperms, they became dominant. So the story is longer. The story is some longer, right? We'll go with this summary, and then what had happened, people? Primates had evolved 6 to 7 million years ago. And then we say that people 195,000 years ago, the human ancestors, they began on Earth, right? So this is the story. And this is the story of establishing life on Earth. But then we discuss further. We discuss further about this evolution process. Right? I know that it's difficult for you to read like this. Is it readable? Is it readable? Little bit, ne? Not that clear, but anyway. Is it readable, people, in your screen? Is it clear? Too small? Right? So this evolution process continued. So the same story, if you start in a different way, we can talk about, people, different, the whole time span of the Earth. We can divide in some chapters, neither. So we can split it into some major timelines, and then within those major timelines, small timelines. So we can talk about eons, neither. Hadean eon, Archean eon, Proterozoic eon, and then what do you call this one, people? What is this? What is this one? Come on, please. What is this? Phanerozoic eon, neither. Phanerozoic eon. So 4 main eons. And then people, we have some information to talk about Hadean, origin of Earth. And then the Archean. So what is this border? 3,850 million years ago, you can take as the border. You don't have to remember all these time periods. Maybe the eon, and if you can remember the event, that's more than enough, neither. So what do you say, people? Archean, origin of life on Earth 3.5 billion years ago. Origin of photosynthetic life forms 2.7 billion years ago. And then what had happened, people? Atmospheric oxygen level gradually improved during the Archean. Then we come to the Proterozoic. So the origin of 1.8 billion years ago, origin of the eukaryotic organism. 1.2, origin of multicellular eukaryotic organisms and protistans. Then 700 million years ago, formation of spongy. 670 million years ago, formation of arthropods and chordates. You can take that under Proterozoic. Proterozoic. Now we come to Phanerozoic. We can divide into 3 eras. What is that? Paleozoic era, Mesozoic era, and the Cenozoic. Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. 3 eras. 3 eras. Now you don't have to remember the names of the periods. Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Carboniferous, Permian. Those are the Paleozoic era periods. No need to remember them. Cat on the school desk can play. That is what we said, ne? Cat on the school desk can play. Cam, Odo, Silu, Devo, Ka, Pe. Right? And then if you take the events, now that's the most important part. Events. What happened in the Cambrian period? Increasing of animal diversity. Then Ordovician, what had happened, people? Land life, land plants, fungi, neither. Scorpions, right? They colonized land. Then vascular plants had evolved. 425 million years ago, vascular plants. Early plants were bryophytes. So the vascular plants had evolved during this Silurian time period. And then people, we use this cartoon, neither. Right? What is that? The modern fish have evolved. Insects had evolved. Tetrapods, land, what do you call? Dwelling vertebrates had evolved 365 million years ago. 365 million years ago. And then next, people, Carboniferous. We said that 2 main events based on the cartoon. What is this? Seed, neither. The snake swallows a seed. That means seed plants had evolved. And the reptiles had evolved. Right? Gymnosperms had evolved. And the reptiles had evolved. That is Carboniferous. And then, people, we take the end of the Paleozoic. There were a lot of volcanism, volcanic eruptions. The earth ruptured, not the whole earth. The surface of the earth, the crust ruptured. And then, people, the continents start floating, creating very unfavorable condition, bringing most of the oceanic life to an end. So this is, dear people, Permian extinction occur here due to volcanism. The, what do you call, the flying insects had evolved during the same time period, right? Those flies, mosquitoes and all, the trouble guys, they had evolved during this time period. Permian, people. So we take this as a border because tragedy happened, killing most of the oceanic life. So we take that as a border. And next come the Mesozoic era. Mesozoic era has 3: Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. Triassic, people, I use this cartoon. Look at this. Look at this cartoon. A mammal give a cone, ice cone to the dinosaur. So what do you see that mammals had evolved, cone-bearing plants had evolved, dinosaurs had evolved. The cartoon helps you to memorize the key events during the Triassic. Jurassic, when come to Jurassic, gymnosperms and the dinosaurs, they were dominant. Extra point, birds had evolved during this time period, Jurassic. And then people, the tragedy happened in the Cretaceous. Why? Large asteroid slammed on Earth, killing dinosaurs, wiping them out. RIP, rest in peace. Dinosaurs died with that. This mammal is so happy. Why? He came to the funeral. The mammals became dominant after that. Large dinosaurs extinct. And then this is a flower reed. So that means what? The flowering plants had begun here. So that the Cretaceous is the beginning of the flowering plants, right? So flowering plants had evolved. So that's the cone-bearing plants. They were the dominant during the Jurassic and the Triassic. But then the flowering plants had begun their life on Earth. And then, you know, people, when come to Cenozoic, mammals, birds, and pollinating insects, they became abundant, right? We see that the radiation of these animals, what do you call radiation? Rapid evolution, right? And then angiosperms, they became dominant. And then origin of primates, 6 to 7 million years ago. And then early human, bipedal human, 195,000 years ago. Origin of the genus Homo took place after that. Last ice age had reported. So these events we discuss, right? These events we discussed. These events we learn. So this whole part is about that. Let's go quickly reading that part. Origin of protocells. Hayden suggested that the early oceans were a solution of organic molecules called the primitive soup. Recent studies related to volcanic atmosphere and alkaline vents show that abiotic synthesis of organic molecules, another source of organic molecules, may have been meteorites. You have to highlight them. RNA accumulated into lipid-bounded vesicles and formed protocells, which exhibited enzyme catalyzed activities and were able to grow, replicate, and evolve. The early genes and the enzymes would have been RNA. So early genes and enzymes, right, were RNA molecules. And then the growth occurred by addition of lipids into the membrane. By collision of these vesicles, they grew bigger, right? And then they form these protocells. Origin of photosynthetic organisms. Fossils are the first photosynthetic organisms of today's cyanobacteria originated before 2.7 billion years ago as a result of photosynthesis. That's an important point. Forget to mention that. What is that, people? As the oxygen level in the early oceans, right, improved, the ions dissolved, seawater dissolved iron oxidize and then settle down, forming some iron deposits. Forgot to mention that, right? So when the water body is saturated with oxygen, they release to the atmosphere, increasing atmospheric oxygen level. Origin of the first eukaryote, right? The fossils of the first eukaryotic organisms were estimated 1.8 billion years ago. These eukaryotic single-cell organisms later evolved into multicellular organisms. The appearance of structurally complex eukaryotic cells sparked the evolution of greater morphological diversity than was possible for simple eukaryotic cells. Right, people? You learn that. Okay, and then diversification of eukaryotes. Special points we discuss here. Special points. What are those special points, people? Right, we said that the early Paleozoic era, several animal groups were including Porifera, spongy, cnidarians, and mollusk appeared in late Proterozoic. 700 million years ago, spongy had evolved. And ancestors of arthropods, chordates, and other 670 million years ago. First food chains appeared after that. About 500 million years ago, plants colonized the land. With emergence of the large trees, different roots, stems, and leaves began. Diversified since 380 million years ago. What's that, people? Check that again. What it says? What it says? It says, with the emergence of large trees, differentiation as root, stems, and leaves began and diversified since 380 million years ago. So that the after formation of vascular plants, the size of the plants had grew bigger, and they have transformed into large plants. And then here they say that earliest tetrapods formed about 365 million years ago. Tetrapods, primates 6 to 7 million years ago. Human species 195,000 years ago. Geological eons, go through those events quickly. Right, look at this. Hadean, origin of Earth. Archean, oldest known rocks on the Earth's surface. That's like a special point. I skipped that. Old fossils of prokaryotes. Concentration of oxygen in the atmosphere increased. Proterozoic, diverse algae and soft-bodied invertebrate animals, oldest fossils of eukaryotes. Right, 1.8. What's the time period? Oldest fossils of eukaryotes, 1.8. Phanerozoic eon covers 3 eras: Paleozoic, Mesozoic, right? Paleozoic, sudden increasing in diversity of many animal phyla. Marine algae became abundant. Diversification of vascular plants. Bony fish, first tetrapods appeared. Amphibians became dominant. Now we are talking about the Paleozoic, right? Amphibians abundant. Extensive forest of vascular plants. First seed plants appear. Origin of radiation of reptiles that happen in the Carboniferous, right? Extinction of many marine and terrestrial organisms. Diversification of early vascular plants. Right, then come to Mesozoic. Our cartoon, remember that? Cone-bearing plants, dinosaurs, origin of mammals. Gymnosperms continue to be the dominant ones. Flowering plants had evolved at the end of the Mesozoic. That is in the Cretaceous. That's in Cretaceous. Then people, Cenozoic. Major radiation of mammals, birds, and pollinating insects. We discuss these things. Right? And then dominance of angiosperms increased. And then origin of many primate groups. Appearance of bipedal human. Genus Homo. Right? Then after that, we learn about people, the Darwinism, Lamarckism and Darwinism. Lamarck's theory had two principles: use and disuse, and then inheritance of acquired characters. What Lamarck said, when you use a certain body part, that improves. When you don't use, it disappears or shrinks gradually. And then what he said, second principle, these improved characters inherit. If it is not used, gradually become weaker and disappear from the population. When it is improved, it inherit to the next generation. Now we know that it's not possible. So we don't agree with that. Use and disuse. So use one of the great example, giraffe example. Giraffes stretch their necks to reach the leaves of higher branches, so the resulting stretching of the neck. You can do that. Stretch your neck and you can elongate it. I talked about some African tribes are there. They put rings to the neck and stretch the neck, right? But their children are not going to have that character, right? Because it's not inheritable. Because normal somatic cell, body cell changes are not going to inherit. So therefore, this theory is wrong. Inheritance of acquired characters is wrong, right? That can't happen. So Lamarck was wrong. And then the great guy came after that. Who's that? Darwin Wallace theory. Not one person either. Darwin and Wallace, the cumulative ideas of both, right, had led into this theory. Anyway, Darwin got the credit, right? Darwin's theory of evolution. Darwin had 4 points in his theory. 2 observations and then 2 interpretations. 2 observations, 2 interpretations in his theory, right? So we'll check those 2 observations of Darwin. What he observed, certain traits in the population which are capable of exhibiting better characters and they can survive, right? And then variation in abilities for survival and reproduction. So organisms present in a population don't have similar features. Sometimes differences are there. What do you call that? Variation present. So one of his observation is variation present, right? And then second observation is overproduction. They produce in many number. Variation present. All are not identical and they are produced in large number. Right? Those are the 2 observations, right? So we know that they are interconnected. Every time people overproduction lead into variation. Definitely, if you have lot of the siblings, then they are not going to be identical to one another. Definitely, they are going to be different to one another. That's variation. Is simply the overproduction simply generate variation, right? So his idea, let's take that. I'll put different color for that. This is his observed 2 phenomena. The population of species vary in characteristics. Each species produce more offsprings. These 2 were the observations. And then these 2 in green color are the interpretations. So organisms who are having better characters, they have the ability to survive, right? Then next is the natural selection. In the nature continuously select these organisms with the better traits. So generation after generation, therefore, their proportion increases. Certain traits in the population capable of exhibiting better qualities for survival and reproduction, and variation in abilities for survival and reproduction among the population may enhance the abundance of the favorable character in the population with continuous sexual reproduction. These characters, people, they inherit because they are present in the entire body, all body cells, right? So therefore, they inheritance of these characters, selected better variants are going to inherit to the next generation. So some of the favorable characteristics: escaping from predators, tolerating physical conditions, obtaining food, resistant against diseases, fertility improbability, number of offsprings produced, right? So these are like better characters, right? And then process of natural selection, we can discuss this in 4 headings: co-production and variation, 2 observations, and then survival of the fittest and natural selection, right? The 2 interpretations. So altogether, we can take this theory in 4. So neo-Darwinism is this new Darwin's theory, right? Using knowledge of cell biology and genetics coupled together, we can describe how population evolves, that we call as neo-Darwinism. It generally denotes the integration of the Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection, Mendelian genetics, as the basis for the biological inheritance, right? And knowledge of population genetics. Population genetics you will understand later, right? We as a population, right, carry characters, and then we inherit those characters to our offsprings, right? So we don't pass our characters. We don't pass our characters, right, to individuals rather than people. We are talking about the population level, right? How characters pass in a population to next. All right. So that's about the this one. We have to go for the life cycle lesson now. Shall we go for life cycle part, people? Life cycle. Life cycle. Right. Today we have to start, people, life cycle from Selaginella. Selaginella life cycle. So we'll start from the Selaginella. Selaginella sporophyte. Right. Let's start from here. Sporophyte. So this sporophyte has stem, roots, and leaves. What do you call the roots, people? Roots are adventitious. Leaves present. Better we talk about leaves a little bit, ne? Before we proceed, why don't we talk about leaves? You learn leaves are 2 types. What do you call, people? Leaves. You can talk about microphyls. What is meant by microphyls? Small leaves. And then you can talk about, people, macrophyls or megaphils. I think I have written earlier here macrophyls, megaphils, neither. Macrophyls, or you can say megaphils, right? Take it as megaphils, right? I think we used as a megaphyll, ne? Right? So here, leaves are 2 types, microphyls and megaphylls. You learn a difference between microphyll and megaphyll. Can anyone remember the difference? Can anyone remember the difference between the microphyll and the megaphyll? Even if you look at this diagram, you can see it clearly. What's the difference between the microphyll and the megaphyll? Who's going to tell me? Come on. Come on. What's the difference between microphyll and a megaphyll? Send me a message, people. Who's going to talk with me? Yutika. No name. Agassi. Akila. Who's going to tell? What is the difference between microphyll and a megaphyll? Come on. What's the difference? Microphylls have, Yutika says, microphylls are single vein. Very nice. Very good. I have a very good student, Yutika. Microphylls are single vein. Okay, Yutika, are you going to tell me how the megaphyll different from the microphyll then? Yeah. How do you say the difference between the, what feature then you see in megaphyll? Yes. What's the feature in megaphyll? Yes, come on. Megaphyll, vascular tissues are branched, branch veins in leaves. That's correct. Very good. Very good. Branch veins are there. One more difference we learned, but it's not in the syllabus. What we said, people? Microphyll, no stalk, ne? Sessile. And this one has a stalk. Stalked, ne? Sessile and stalked. And then, as name means, microphyll is small. Microphyll is a small one. Megaphyll is large. Microphyll is a small one and the megaphyll is a large one. Right. Now, and also you learn, microphylls are present in some phyla. Which phylum you say microphyll present? Which phylum has microphyll? You can see it here. What is that phylum with microphyll? And what phyla you see megaphyll present? Come on, microphyll, which phylum? Come on. Hello. Hello. Yes, come on. Why today so silent? Ne? Why? Is it because of rain? You wrap yourself with a blanket and you can't touch your phone or the keyboard. Is that the reason? Today. Why so silent? Heavy rain from afternoon, eh? Heavy rain from afternoon. Did you go to school today? Did you go to school? Ada gaya the school, eh? Do you have term test? Term test ada? School gaya ada? Come on. Hello. Hello, hello. Are you angry with me? Are you angry with me? Why no one respond today? So have term test on 28th. Harun says that. Okay. 28. 28. Today is 15th. Ne? So you better, ne? Good time to study, right? Right. So microphylls are two types. Some microphylls are reproductive. Some are non-reproductive. That means they are normal photosynthetic ones. What do you call them? Photosynthetic ones? Foliage leaves. Now, reproductive ones and the foliage ones, neither. Now, foliage ones, the leaves can arrange in two different sizes. Microphylls arrange in two ways. Ventral and the dorsal. What do you call that? Heterophyll condition. What do you call that condition? Heterophyll. So, what is heterophyll? Presence of leaves with two different sizes. Presence of leaves with two different sizes. What do you call that? That is heterophyll. Then people, reproductive leaves, microsporophylls and megasporophylls. Now you understand, microsporophylls ones are the ones which forms microspores. Microspores, microsporangia, they are born on microsporophyll. You know, people, microsporangia are forming sperms. Sorry, microsporangia are forming microspores. Microspores grow and form the male plant. Male plant produces what, people? Male plant produce sperms. So anyway, microsporophylls, therefore, something like a male part. It's something like a male part. Boys. So what is that? Microsporophyll is a boy leaf. Megasporophyll is a girl leaf. Isn't it? So that makes some sense, isn't it? So plants also have male-female features now. Right? Boy features. So the megasporophyll is girlish. It forms a megasporangium, which produce megaspores, which produce the megaspore, forms the gametophyte. Which gametophyte? Female gametophyte. Girl gametophyte. Right? Female gametophyte has archegonia. Archegonia makes the egg. Is that clear? So therefore, when we talk about Lycophyta, they have microphylls. Microphylls can be microsporophylls and megasporophylls. Microphylls can be foliage leaves, vegetative, photosynthetic, or microphylls can be reproductive microphylls. Reproductive microphylls are called microsporophylls and megasporophylls. Microsporophylls and megasporophylls. All right. Right now we come to the other half. Let's learn about the megaphyll. Megaphyll. Who has megaphylls? What plant phyla has megaphylls? Right? Now, microphylls are only present in Lycophyta. So, what plant phyla has megaphylls? Pterophyta. What else? What else? Yeah, what else has megaphylls? Come on. Type. All seed plants, that's Utica, says all seed plants. What are seed plants? I'm asking phyla. Utica, I'm asking, expecting phyla. Phyla. You know, phyla. So what phyla? Come on. Type. Psychotophyta, good. Correct. Then Coniferophyta, correct. And then Netophyta, correct. And then last one, Anthophyta, perfect, right? So they all have what? Megaphylls. They can be again foliage or reproductive. Foliage. Right? Now, you know, some foliage can transform into reproductive. Anyway, in Pterophyta, we can see that people spore forming, mature foliage leaves start producing spores, and they produce only one type of spores. If one type of spores are produced, homosporous. One type of spores are produced, homosporous. Then some of the plants, they produce microsporophylls and megasporophylls. You know that, neither. Microsporophylls, boy, ne? Megasporophylls, girl, right? So microsporophylls, microsporangia, microspores, male gametophyte, sperm. Megasporophylls, megasporangia, megaspore, female gametophyte, archegonia, and the egg. Right? All right. Okay. So we are to discuss this. We are to discuss this life cycle. Selaginella life cycle. So this one is the sporophyte. This is that sporophyte has foliage leaves. You can see the leaves, foliage leaves, ventral dorsal leaves are present. Leaves are arranged in 4 rows. Plant has adventitious roots. Plant has adventitious roots. Adventitious roots means what? Roots born from any other part other than the roots. Roots form from the stem. Roots form from leaves. What do you call them? Adventitious roots. So these are adventitious. Why adventitious? They form from the stem. And here we have the strobilus. Here we have the strobilus. Strobilus has microsporophyll and it has megasporophylls. Microsporophylls produce microsporangia. Microsporangia forms undergo meiosis. Sorry, microsporangia has microspore mother cells. They undergo meiosis and then produce microspores. Megasporophyll has megasporangium. It has megaspore mother cells. By meiosis produce megaspores. Microspores disperse by wind. Megaspores also disperse by wind. So when the megaspore fall, It's grow into female gametophyte. This is the mature female gametophyte. This one is not large, microscopic structure. It's a microscopic one, growing independently on ground. This one. And then it has upper green color part, which is photosynthetic. There you can see archegonia are going to form. Some rhizoids are going to come out. Here, you can see rhizoids. These are rhizoids. They come out, right? And they trap also these, what do you call people? They trap also microspores. And the microspores, when they grow, they transform into male gametophyte that releases sperm. Archegonia forms egg. Egg and the sperm unite. And here, the fertilization take place here on the female gametophyte. So this one is female gametophyte. On that, the sporophyte grow and then later become independent. That's all. Simple life cycle. Simple life cycle. Right? Simple life cycle. Simple life cycle. Okay. Right. Now we move to the board. Right. To talk about Selaginella. To talk about Selaginella life cycle. Selaginella life cycle. That's flowering plant. Neplephis we learned last week. Selaginella life cycle. Selaginella life cycle. Check those features, people. Check those features. Sporophytes are dominant and photosynthetic. Gametophytes are reduced in structure and short-lived, partially depending on the sporophyte. Sporophytic plant body is differentiated into roots, stems, and leaves. Vascular tissues present. Herbaceous means what? Short-growing herbs. Heterophyllous leaves. Heterophyllous. Now you understand that. What is heterophyllous? Heterophyllous means what? The two types of vegetative leaves are there. And then stem is dorsoventrally flattened. Sporangia are borne on special leaves called sporophylls. Sporophylls are compactly arranged on the terminal strobilus. Two types of sporophylls are called megasporophylls and microsporophylls. All right. Oops. Sporophylls are compactly arranged. Two types of sporophylls called megasporophylls, microsporophylls. Megasporophylls produce single megasporangium. Microsporophylls produce single microsporangium. That's a special feature. On every leaf, what do you see, people? Single sporangium. Megasporangium 1, microsporangium 1. Right? Not a cluster. Now, if a cluster of sporangia are present, what do you call it? When a cluster of sporangia are present, what do you call? When a cluster present, what do you call it? What do you call the cluster? When a cluster present, what do you call it? Not single sporangium on the leaf, but many sporangia present on one leaf. What do you call it? Sorus. Very good. Aquila says sorai, sorus singular. Sorus singular. Very good. Very good, Aquila. Megasporangium produce 4 large megaspores by meiosis. Microsporangium produce numerous. That's special point. Megasporangium produce 4 large megaspores. 4 large megaspores. Microsporangium produce many numerous. Numerous. small microspores. Both types of spores have thick, tough walls. Microspores are retained in the microsporangium and develop into young male gametophyte. Young male gametophytes are enclosed by walls of microspores which are released by the microsporangium. In the external environment, they become mature male gametophytes. Male gametophyte is microscopic, enclosed in microspore wall, non-photosynthetic depending on the stored food. Male gametophyte produce flagellated sperms and release them into external environment. Megaspores start to develop into female gametophyte in the strobilus and are released into the external environment. Female gametophyte is multicellular, surrounded by thick-walled of megaspore. Few rhizoids develop. Photosynthetic partial dependent on stored food in the megaspore. Archegonia develop and superficial regions are fully embedded. All right, look at this. Female gametophyte is multicellular. Female gametophyte is multicellular. All right. Rhizoids develop. Photosynthetic, but partial depending on the food in the megaspore. Archegonia develop as the superficial region and fully embedded in the gametophytic tissues. One egg is produced in each archegonium. Sperm swim towards the egg, fertilizes. Zygote develop and form an embryo. Right? So that's it, ne? That's it. Life cycle of Selaginella. Selaginella life cycle. Right? Now we move into Caecus. When come to Caecus, the story is different. Caecus has microsporophylls and megasporophylls, but the Caecus difference is microsporophylls are born on one plant, megasporophylls are born on another plant. So the sporophyte is two types, male sporophyte and the female sporophyte present separately. Now let's take that the male sporophyte has microsporophylls. They make microspores. Microspores grow and form male gametophyte. They form sperms. Simple. On the other hand, megasporophylls. This is having a megasporangium. Ne? Megasporophyll has megasporangium. The megasporangium now cover with a new protective layer. What do you call that protective layer? What is this, people? Nucellus. So that's a new stage. This is a new stage. Why? Megasporangium, this previous megasporangium now cover with integument. It's like a prison. So Caecus don't want the precious, the beautiful megasporangium to run away from home. Ne? So it makes a new protective wall so that she can stay safely inside. What do you call that? That whole structure together with the megasporangium, what do you call that? Ovule. Ovule. That's ovule. Neither. So ovule, inside the ovule, megaspore grow and then form this green, blue color part. What is that blue color part? Female gametophyte with archegonia. That produce inside the ovule. It form inside the ovule. All right. Right. I think it's clear. So, when we learn about Caecus life cycle, this is the beautiful Caecus life cycle. Caecus life cycle. Okay. Caecus life cycle. So, this is the male sporophyte. What is this? Female sporophyte. Male sporophyte, what do you see, people? Male cone. What is male cone? Male cone is collection of microsporophylls. And what is this one? One single microsporophyll. On underside, what do you see, people? Sporangia present as clusters. Whenever sporangia clusters available, what do you call it? You call that as sorus. So sori present. Right now, anyway, now sori present. If you take one sporangium, this is microsporangium. It undergo meiosis. It has microspore mother cells. It undergo meiosis and then form what? Microspores. Microspore dispersed by wind and fall on the ovule. Now let's go back to the female plant. This is female plant. Stem root leaves present. It produces the megasporophyll with these ovules. This is one ovule. This is one ovule. We learned about it earlier. So here we can see mother cell present, megaspore mother cell. It undergo meiosis and then produce 4 megaspores. 3 megaspores are going to die. One remain. It multiply and then become the female gametophyte. Female gametophyte form archegonia. Female gametophyte is forming this archegonium inside. When the microspore fly and fall on this pore here. What do you call the pore? Micropyle. This move inside and then germinate into the male gametophyte. So this male gametophyte has 2 male sperms, 2 sperms present, male gametes, and pollen tube. These male gametes are going to release into the cavity here. What do you call this cavity? Which chamber? Archegonial chamber. Archegonial chamber. And they fertilizes the egg inside the archegonial chamber. So they don't need rainwater for fertilization. Once the fertilization happens, we get the embryo. And the female gametophyte store food and become endosperm. Female gametophyte now becomes the endosperm. You understand that? So the whole structure, the entire structure is the seed. So seed disperse and form male-female plants once again. They disperse and form male-female plants once again. Coecus life cycle. Coecus life cycle. Right? Coecus life cycle. So look at this. Life cycle of coecus. Life cycle of coecus. Sporophytes are the dominant and photosynthetic. Sporophytes are dominant and photosynthetic. Sporophytes are perennial. What do you call perennial? What is this word? The special word. They are called perennial. Means what, people? Perennial tree means what? Growing many years. Stem is unbranched and woody. Leaves are arranged as crown. Compound leaves show xerophytic adaptation. What do you call xerophytic? Very harsh conditions the plant is adapted. Sporophytes are heterosporous and dioecious. Secondary growth present. Secondary growth, you know secondary growth. Sporophytes and microspores are called male plants. Mature female plant produce a crown of megasporophylls. Megasporangium is enclosed in the protective layer called integument. Integument. Integument has a small pore. It has a small pore in the distal end of the ovule called micropyle. One of the cell in the megasporangial tissue differentiate into single megaspore mother cell. Megaspore mother cell undergo meiosis to form 4 haploid megaspores, out of which only one remain functional. One remain functional. Right? And then The remaining megasporangial tissue function as nucellus. Nucellus is, what is that nucellus, people? Megasporangium, ne? Nucellus is megasporangium, right? Megaspores are not released into the external environment, but they kept inside. The female gametophyte while within the ovule. Mature ovule contain female gametophyte. The female gametophyte produce several archegonia. Each archegonium produce single egg cell. Each archegonium inside one egg cell is present. Mature male plant produce male cones. A male cone-like structure where microsporophylls are clustered, ne? Right? Microsporophyle cluster. Form microspore mother cells. Hurry. They develop into pollen grain within the sporangium and discharge. Pollen grains are dispersed by wind and fall on the micropyle. What do you call falling on the micropyle? Here we say that pollination. Falling on the micropyle of a mature ovule is pollination. So pollination for flowering plants, pollination, seed plant pollination, slightly different. Slightly different. Pollen grains enter into the pollen chamber and of the ovule through the micropyle. In the pollen chamber, pollen grains develop into male gametophyte. Male gametophytes consist of branched pollen tube, which involves in absorption of nutrients. Look at this. This has pollen tube, which is involving in absorption of nutrients. They produce two large flagellated sperms. The end of the pollen tube ruptures and releasing the sperms. Zygote develops into the embryo. Right? Two in zygote produce, zygote develops into embryo. Remaining female gametophyte become the endosperm, which provide nutrients to the developing embryo. The ovule becomes the seed. Seed is dispersed until it contain embryo, which contain embryo and stored food and enclosed in the seed coat. Seeds are dispersed and under favorable conditions. So that's about the seekers, right? And that's all for the day, right? And then thank you very much, people, for joining with the class. We'll go slowly, steadily, right? We'll go on discussing these things, right? We'll meet once again on Saturday. So you have to bring the answered papers, right? Please come with the answered papers, right? So please study cellular respiration part. I think you can do it by yourself, right? Study cellular respiration part and complete the answer paper 12. Paper 12 answer it, right? I'll meet you on Saturday. Bring the paper, please. Right? Then thank you very much and I'll see you soon.